you were to think back to like 16-year-old Gabby, what do you wish that you would have told yourself about all the incredible things that you were going to experience?
Why do I feel waves of water coming out my eyeballs as you ask me that? I'm like, get it together.
Welcome back to After the Routine. I'm your host, Rochelle Provo, and I'm here with the one and only Gabby Mauro, the face behind Score Sheets with Gabby Mauro. She's a certified judge across multiple scoring systems, including United, Open Championships, and YCADA. She has over 15 years of experience in the industry and has judged some of the most prestigious events, including Summit, All-Star Worlds, and NCAA Nationals, which I'm so excited to hear about because that's going to be incredible. And she currently works as a head judge for multiple event producers while judging all categories. And she is known for breaking down scoring in a way that is clear, actionable, and coach friendly. With a background in teaching, coaching, and choreography, Gabby brings a unique blend of education and real-world experience to her work. She's passionate about empowering coaches and athletes with the knowledge they need to feel confident, prepared, and competitive on the mat. So thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, Gabby.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm blushing as you're talking about me. I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
Right? It's such a moment to be like, look at the things I've done, right? We don't often get to do that. And we usually are pretty like, oh, I'll be humble about it. But like, no, like this is the moment to be like, no, this is all the really cool stuff I get to do every day.
Yeah. And then someone else says, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I've done that before.
I love that. So I'd love to know, how did you get started in the world of cheer and dance and all that?
So I was a competitive figure skater for 15 years. That was like my childhood. And when I believe it was eighth grade, one of my mom's friend's nieces like cheered at a little all-star program in my area. And she's like, you should try cheer. And I was so used to the individual sport that I was like, oh, maybe like a team sport would be cool. I went to one practice and I was like, oh my God, I love this. So I got hooked right away. Cheered all-star for a while, and then I also cheered in college, which was such an incredible experience. I cheered on both, like, the game day side and the competitive side, so I got to see all of that. And then I actually was coaching when I was younger too, like the little tinies, but I started coaching, high school in my area and all-star at the same time. I don't know how I did it. I look back and I'm like, my blood must have literally just been energy drinks. Like, I don't know how I did that. Myself now could never. I'm in bed by 9 almost every night. Anyways, I'll stop rambling, but pretty much the first practice I was hooked, and then I got into judging and coaching more and all the things, and it has completely taken over my life.
Love that. Yeah, no, rambling is totally accepted on here. I had my other guest, Sarah Walsh, was on, and she's like, just tell me when to, when to stop rambling. I was like, I probably won't.
Good, good.
I love that. I mean, like going from an individual sport to a team sport, how did you find that transition?
It was hard, but almost in the best way, especially because I was still in that, like, vulnerable age of being a teenager where, like, I think the biggest thing for me is, like, when I made a mistake in an individual sport, it was all on me, and, like, I didn't really have, like, a team of people to be like, "Hey, that's okay that you mess up." I, of course, had my coaches and my mom who was, like, really involved in my skating life, but taking mistakes was a lot harder. Whereas when you're in a team sport, there's a lot of things that within like a cheer routine that like it's not always one person's fault. But even in those instances of, okay, say you bust your tumbling pass, your team is there to lift you up and support you and say, hey, no, that's okay. Like we all make mistakes. So I think that was a hard shift for me, but I'm really thankful for it because it taught me so much about how to work as a team, which has really helped me in the rest of my career. Every job on planet Earth, you have to learn how to work with other people. And I don't think I had a lot of those skills in an individual sport because I just didn't have to.
Yeah, that's fair. And then you talked about coaching and then transitioning into judging. So, like, how did you decide one day that you're like, I'm going to be a judge? Like, I'm going to go that route?
Oh, that was probably the best day of my life. Okay, so at the time I was coaching a high school varsity team. I was overseeing our JV program too. It was like my first real experience of running something. I had coached like the tiny teams and some other like all-star teams, but this was like my first time that I was fully in charge of something. And I'm like, this is so awesome. I loved it. Well, on top of that, I also was coaching 3 all-star teams an hour and a half away from my house. While I was also in school to be a teacher, I was also working as a personal trainer. Like my life was crazy. And I remember at the end of that first season being like, I'm really tired. I'm really tired, but I love this, but I just, like, didn't know if I could keep going on the path that I was on because I was so invested. So my best friend and I had coached together, and her sister had been judging for a while, and my best friend and I were in the same boat where she was like, "I'm tired." And so her sister was like, "You guys should judge because you still get your cheerleading fix, but all the extra energy of the late night planning, the extended practices, the basketball games, the traveling for competition, all the things you didn't need to do." So I was like, that kind of sounds really interesting. So I applied, had some great conversations through my interviews. And after the very first event, I was like, I'm done. I'm never coaching again. This is incredible. The fact that I could show up and watch cheerleading for 12 hours and get paid for it and then not have to deal with parents when I got home. Like my phone, I had no notifications, none when I got home. Like, this is everything okay? It was great. So that was the icing on the cake for me was obviously like respect to parents because they care so much, but it is so beautiful to not have to answer 50 texts about why their kid got moved to the back of the jump section. It's great.
Yeah, I work with 2 gyms, and I think on average, I have, like, over 100 messages a day.
Yeah, that was the kicker for me, and it was hard too because I also was in the process of becoming a teacher at the time, so, like, I'm waking up in the morning and going to the gym, doing my training stuff, and then going to teaching, so I was at school from, like, 8 until 3, and then I get out and I have 50 messages on my phone, but I have to get to practice, and it's like I didn't have enough time in the day to do all the things I needed to do. So judging was a really, really nice transition for me because you still get to appreciate cheer and work with coaches, but you don't have all the extra planning on your schedule.
And you get to watch cheerleading for, like, 12 hours a day.
It's so awesome. There are times I'll be on the judges riser and like look at a friend and be like, this is so sick that we get paid to do this. I'm having the best time.
I think that, like, there's so many things where, like, I own a marketing agency, and we specialize in cheerleading and, tumbling studios and that, and every single time I'm like, I get to talk to gym owners, and I get to do this, like, where did this come up? Like, this is amazing. I get to do what I love every single day.
Isn't it such a good feeling? Little story about my life. I actually just quit my teaching job about a month ago. I was a teacher for 7 years and I have officially left. I know it's crazy, but I'm doing this full time now. And the amount of people who have said to me, and I know you'll understand this, they're like, you can do cheer as a full time job. I'm like, girl, if you only knew how much there is out there, like, I pinch myself every morning that I wake up and I'm like, I get to talk about cheer all day long. This is so sick.
I know. I was talking to one of my athletes one day, a couple years ago too, and she was like, grade 10 or so, and she's starting to think about, what courses should I take? Where should I go? And I was like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, I want to be a choreographer, but I have no idea how that would work. And I was like, "Okay, let's sit down. We're gonna like map this out because no one knows. Like there's so many different things and roles and places that you can work and be able to live and breathe and love cheer every single day."
It's crazy. There's just so many different outlets of like the little loop, like Pop Warner teams. Then you have middle school, you have high school, which is a whole other avenue of cheerleading that is so untapped. It's crazy. And then you have All Star with all the different scoring systems, the different levels. It's like I've said, if there was 100 more of me, there would still be not enough people to help everybody in the cheerleading industry. There's just so much to go
Right?
around.
And then you think about like people, doing pro shop stuff and they're designing uniforms. And you're like, that's a whole other side of it that like no one talks about.
Yeah, there's so many. I say this all the time. I think cheerleading is so beautiful because there are so many things from, like you just said, the pro shops and the uniforms, the music, the equipment that you need, the event producing side, the choreography side, the judging, that's the MCs from the events. Like I could list 15 things that all require hundreds of thousands of people to be involved in, and I haven't even scratched the surface yet. And I don't know of another sport that's like that. Like you don't get the
Yeah.
same need for people at love football. I'm a huge football fan, but like you need uh grass, some lines, a referee, and a football. That's it. Like you don't
Yep.
need all the production like cheerleading does. So I love it because it brings jobs to so many different people that can do what they love every day.
Yeah. I love that so much. So then what started that passion for you to then go and start talking about scoring and judging and all of that on social media?
I love this. And now I've done a couple of podcasts, but for some reason today I've had this like overpowering that's like, it's okay to share your story. So I'm going to share a little bit of what
Yes,
has
yes.
brought me here. And I haven't talked about this with anybody else yet, but so when I was cheering, I always have felt like I was destined for something bigger in life. I don't know. I'm not like a religious person, but I'm very big on just like empowering and feeling like there's something more to life. So I've always had that feeling inside me. And when I was cheering in high school, I found myself quickly, like I told you, I started late. I didn't start till middle school. I found myself quickly climbing the ladder of making great connections, becoming like a really hard worker, doing things outside of the gym. Like I got invested heavily very quickly. And I think that that wasn't exactly what people around me wanted to see. And as I get older, I have learned that a lot of that just comes from jealousy and not wanting to empower others. I'm going to get choked up talking about it, but I think that that was so hard for me. Is like I
Yeah.
constantly was like, why me? Why are people being mean to me? Why aren't people understanding? I just want to help and I want to be involved. So as I've gotten older, I was on my way home from a competition actually almost a year ago. Next weekend it'll be a year. And I have talked about this with other people, but the guy in front of me on the plane was reading The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I'm not sure if you've ever read it. It's
Yep.
unbelievable. So I was, and I don't read, I am not a reader, but I was like, I keep seeing this book, I'm going to listen to it. So I started listening to the audiobook and I was like, I felt so unbelievably connected to everything that she was saying. I was like, is this book about me? Like, this is crazy. I think it took me about 3 weeks to read, and I swear to you, it was like I came out of listening to that a new person. I was like, I don't care what people have to say. I just want to love on other people, empower them, and dive into this thing that I'm so passionate about. And if people don't want to jump on the train, then that's their problem. So I put my big girl pants on and I said, I'm going to stop being so afraid of people trying to take things from me or take me down. And I'm just going to do what I do best, and that is to help people. So my now fiance was like, you should download TikTok. And I said, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. And he was like, you're crazy. You need to do it. So I listened to him. I just started randomly recording myself. I have a couple videos of me trying to record myself in the car and the camera's like falling and I'm like, "What the hell? How did people do this? This is crazy." So I had no clue what I was doing, but just decided to go for it and it just started going and people were engaging and I was like, "I think I'm pretty good at this." Like I really love everything about cheer and I have a teaching background. I'm like, I'm just going to keep going and see what happens. I look back and I'm like, "Holy crap." I had no idea what I was in for, and, like, I'm so proud of myself for taking something that through my childhood was so negative and was so soul crushing and using it as power to do better and also empower others. I think that's the biggest thing that our industry misses the mark on, is it's a lot of combativeness, it's a lot of course, it's a competitive sport that is very woman dominant, so of course that's gonna happen. But I think we just missed the mark on let's collaborate. Let's talk about how amazing you are. Hey, this isn't my strength, but let me refer you to someone who it is their strength. And I'm really, really, really thankful that I get to be a small part of that and work with people like you or any of the other podcasts I've done where it's like, hey, we're all talking about the same thing, but do you know how many different conversations that we can have when we all do it together? And my heart's like pounding out of my chest is talking about it right now because of how much I truly am like, I'm so, so grateful for it.
I love that. I totally agree. I think I'm the same. I actually didn't start cheerleading until I was 14. I didn't do like until high school. And I was the same. I would sit there and think like I'm so behind. I'm so late. There was no all-star around me 15 years ago. So I was like, you know what? Like I'm just going to do my 4 years and I'm going to retire and I'll love cheerleading and I'll never look at it again. And then I came back like 8 years later and I was like, no, actually, like, how do I keep this in my life? Because it's such an important part of everything I do. But I love that because, yeah, I love the let them theory. And I also think that the second part of like, let them do their own thing, but also let me do my thing. Like, let me go
Yes.
after those opportunities and do what I want to do and be passionate about it. And I love that so much. We could do a whole episode just on a review of the book.
Oh my god, it is seriously I tell all of my friends, I'm like, "You need to read this book." It is so empowering and just the amount of times I've been in a situation where I used to get so, "Ugh, why are they blah, blah," I'm like, "Let them, and I'm gonna go let me do this." And it is like, I am a completely I think if you ask any of my close friends or my fiancé what I was like a year ago, they'd be like, "I don't even know who that girl is anymore." And I give 100% credit to that book.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think that that's an important theory to go into on social media because let them say
Yes.
what they need to say, let them do what they're going to do, and let me do the thing and help people and educate and do what I want to do on that side too.
I'm totally with you on that 100%.
I love that. So when you're planning out your content and you're thinking about all the different things, especially with like, I know there's been so much stuff with like end of season and ICU is happening, Worlds is starting this weekend. So, what is your favorite thing to talk about?
Oh my gosh. That's such a hard question. I actually keep a running note in my phone. So, like, let's say I'm like having a conversation with a friend. I'm like, oh, that's really good. I'll like write it down because my brain goes 10,000 miles a minute. Anything cheer related. I say it's like a hamster on a wheel that never stops moving. So if I don't
Yep.
write it down, I will forget about it. I think my favorite thing to talk about is hold on, I got to think about this for a minute. Because part of me wants to be like, I love debunking conspiracies that are not true, but really, like, that's not what I want to continue to build my platform on. I want it to be more
Yeah.
for what really makes my heart tick is like when you have a newer coach or maybe a gym that only has 2 teams and they're just like, "This does not make sense. Like, can you please explain it?" And then I either make a video or if I'm in score review, I have a conversation with the coach and they go, "Oh my god, that makes sense. Like, I totally get it." That. Like, any sort of, like, score sheet education of, "Hey, you don't know what most and max mean? Like, let me explain it to you." Or, "Hey, tumbling can be cumulative throughout the routine." They're like, "What's cumulative?" And then I explain it and the light bulb goes off. That is my bread and butter. I love that.
I love that. What do you find is the one thing that most coaches they struggle with the most? Like what area of the score sheet?
Uh, I think pyramid on both on everything, whether it's a comparative rubric for high school, whether it's United or Waikata or OCS or whatever. Everyone's like, how do I do the things to get that top score? And I think there's some really special people out in the industry, whether it's choreographers or judges that get it, that get pyramids. And it's like such, I remember the day it clicked for me. I literally remember working with another judge. It was one of my very first events. And she was like, "You're going to judge building difficulty." And I said, "No, I'm not. I am an execution girl." And she's like, "Today you're going to do it." And she sat with me while the teams were on. She was super experienced and she helped me.
Yeah.
And as I was scoring it, I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. And that has helped me with my choreography. It's helped me with explaining it. And I think it's really hard because a lot of the rubrics only give the coaches like bullet points, like do this, do this, do this, do this. But really, when you judge it, like those bullet points, there's like 12 sub bullet points for all of the bullets. So I think that's the hardest one. And I completely understand why it's hard for coaches because it doesn't give you much on the rubric to run with it unless you really, really
Yeah.
understand it.
I love that. Yeah, there's so many things like I know even like pace is always one that like newer coaches are like I don't understand what this is. Like and I'm like okay, so like skill to skill to skill like how does it like does it feel slow all these things and then they're like okay, okay, we're going to have to go through this. And I'm like okay, now I want you to go watch these teams and tell me what it felt like. Like
Exactly. And to them, it could be like this is the other thing that I think's so hard too. I always say you have a coach hat and you have a judge hat. When you're at practice and you're working with your team from May until May, because it's a whole year, you're like, okay, what their routine looked like 3 months ago, it's so much better now. So the pace is really strong. But where I think the you got to take the coach hat off is the judge doesn't know what your routine looked like 3 months ago. So 3 months ago, it could have been so unbelievably slow. And now it's slow with a touch of mediocre. And that's hard as a coach to be like, but they've improved so much. Like, why is my score still low? It's hard. And I don't think I ever understood that until I started judging. Now I'm like, now I understand why my team scored a 91 because they were not that great. But I thought they were great because they improved so much throughout the year. So it's
Yeah.
being you got to be a very patient, hardworking person to be a coach in this industry right now.
Yeah. I love that. And what do you wish athletes, coaches, parents knew more about being a judge?
Oh my god, that it's not what any of them think it is. The amount of posts this week that I have seen online, I can feel the gray in my hair coming out because I'm like, "That's not true, and that's not true, and that's not true, and that's not true." Like, just there's just so much information. So, I think if there's one thing that I think could alleviate a lot. 2. I'm going with 2 because the other one's
Yeah.
important. The first one is most of the judges you see sitting on the judging panel do not judge your entire routine. They're responsible for one category and then a subcategory of that. And I think a lot of coaches and parents are like, they just didn't like us. And I'm like, no, they had one thing they were watching. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that judges are also human too, and we make mistakes. And there is a process in place for if a judge makes a mistake that you can go and try to fix that. So it's your responsibility as a coach to be able to say, hey, that judge missed this skill, or we had this extra tumble pass, or whatever. And then on the flip side of that, too, like we might sneeze and miss a deduction. And that happens sometimes. Like it's the same thing as when you watch the referees at the football games. They don't always get it right. They don't always say a catch is a catch or give the first down when it's supposed to be there. We're human. And so I think sometimes we just need to take a step back and give a little bit of grace and say, well, yeah, they might have sneezed during their 107th routine they watched that day. And we're all going to live because at the end of the day, it is literally just cheerleading.
Yep. I'm always like, it's a game. Like, take a
Yeah.
breath when I'm backstage with my athletes. I'm like, same routine, different mats, but at the end of the day, it's just a game. Like
Yes.
your worth is not determined by how you do on this mat. Your, kindness and ability to be a wonderful human does not determine if you hit zero or all your skills go or you bail on a tumbling pass. Like
Yes, I
things
love
happen
I
and
love that. I love that. You just said something that really resonated of just saying, like, "This routine doesn't define your worth." I truly believe that some people think it does. Like, I think coaches think that if their
100%.
team falls, that that defines that they're a good coach or not. You can be the most fantastic coach in the world, and your kids are still gonna make mistakes, and I think we need to get that printed on a T-shirt and make coaches wear it at events.
I love that. We'll make little stickers. It's like
Yes,
you
yes.
you are worth it. Yeah. Yeah, and I think too like the younger you go or the higher level you go, you need to remember that point, right? Like if you're sick you sixes, like mine recently, I love them. They went on the mats and they all tumbled different directions. And I was like, we've done this routine, I don't know how many times. And we went back to the mat, back to the gym, and I said, okay, everyone point the direction you're supposed to tumble. And they all point the exact same way. And I was like, how do we do this? Like, right. And then, but like at the same time, I'm like, okay, yeah, like in that moment, they just were like, there's big lights and there's a bunch of people and like, oh my gosh, right. And I think the same thing when you go higher levels, you get, summit level teams, national level teams, world's level teams, like the same thing, like them making a mistake or something happening on that day, or like someone gets injured, someone has the flu or food poisoning, and they go and they have to do like that doesn't define that athlete and that doesn't define you or your routine. Like we're human, like you said, and like we make mistakes, we have bad days. And I think in a sport that's very focused on like perfection and like looking great as much as we can for 2.5 minutes, that is so important to remember.
Completely agree. Completely agree with you.
So you talked about there being judges for different categories. So can you talk a little bit more about like what those categories look like and kind of like how does that work when you're on a panel?
Yeah. So a normal like panel for an all-star event looks like you have two building judges, you have your building difficulty and your building execution. So and then you have the same thing for tumbling, tumbling difficulty, tumbling execution. I explain that as difficulty gives points. They say, good job. You did the things. You did the hard things. Here you go. They are really looking for what the skills are. They don't care what it looks like as long as the skill is completed. The execution judges are taking points from you and saying, this didn't look great, or this had a body line error, or your feet were not together. They could care less what the skill is. They don't care what level you are. It doesn't matter to them. They're strictly scoring you based on your ability to do something to perfection. Now, that is where the hot topics come in, because what my version of perfection is may be different than someone else's version of perfection. And I think that that's where it can get really tricky, because you want it to be close, but you don't want it to be exactly the same, or you're going to score the same at every event. So that's a whole other podcast episode. We could talk about that. You got those four. Then you have your overall judge. So depending on what rubric you're on, they're responsible for watching the whole routine. They score your dance, but then like on United, they're responsible for if there's formations or transitions when you're moving from one skill to another, if athletes are bumping into each other. That is a reduction of points, where on some of the other rubrics, it's more like an overall encompassing score of, were your formations clean? Did you have intricate movements from skill to skill? Were athletes running from one side of the mat to the other? And then you have your deductions judge. So they're the one that's like, oh, you fell on your face, or oh, that building fall came down, or this was a major building fall because the person hit the floor. So they're pretty much watching for mistakes that would define a reduction of points. And then you have your legalities judge, which I feel so bad for anybody who does legalities, because I feel like you're consistently in the hot seat. It's the hardest job in the world, being a legality judge, because something as simple as fingers being like a centimeter from each other or touching each other can make the difference of a legality. You have to have like superhuman vision and you got to be on it all day long. So they're responsible for knowing the all rules for all cheerleading for whatever branch you're in, and then also level specific rules. So they call those. Then some, not all, event producers have two different roles, or some of them have both. So you have your quality control person who's responsible for, do the comments make sense, or did you like misspell something and now you're saying like, I don't know, cup instead of tuck or something. You like type the wrong word. So they're like your spell check person. They're also making sure that if a score, like if something was taken off, that there's a comment that matches it. Not everybody has that person. Some people dual this role into one, some people have it split. Then you also have the head judge, who their job is also really hard. They pretty much judge every category over again. So they watch the routine after the judges have already scored it, and they're like, is the building difficulty correct? Is the tumbling difficulty correct? Are all these scores correct? So they're like a second set of eyes before that goes out. I say that I think that if you have a head judge, it's the most important role, because you're kind of giving it one more look before it goes out. And if you notice something that's off, like let's say an execution judge said, oh, no tosses were in the routine, but then the building difficulty said tosses were in the routine, that's a problem. So you need to go back and watch it and either have a conversation with the panel judge or fix it yourself. I think it's crazy that some event producers do not have that role. And that's probably why score sheets go out incorrect, because you have judges who are human on the panel and they make a mistake and nobody's looking at it before it goes out. Then there's one more person who's really important, or people, and that's your AccuScore, your score review team. So they're the people that score sheet goes out to the coach. Coach says, this score is not correct. I had 12 round off handspring tucks. The judge only counted 11. They can come to that score review person, and they are your third set of eyes that triple checks it. And if points are warranted to go back, then they give points back. But really that role is important, at least from my perspective, because a lot of times when coaches are challenging, it's just like a lack of knowledge, and not in like a bad way. There's so many things to learn that sometimes it's just an education piece of like, oh, your show and go actually has to pass above your eyes, or you can't have your hand here in order for this element to count. And then that coach knows moving forward, okay, this is what I need to fix in order to get credit for it. So I think that's all your people.
I love that. I know. And a lot of times when parents are like kind of passing the judges, they're like, oh, I just see like 2 or 3. And it's like, no, there are way more that you can see. Like you're down here and they're like way up here.
Yes. Yes. We're all tucked away somewhere. And I actually work a lot of events that I'm judging from home. So you may see like a camera on the judges stand, or even like let's say like your overall judge at the event had a family emergency. So you can't fly somebody in because there's only so many judges in the world. You may have somebody that's judging from home for that event. So that could be part of it too.
Yeah. And then, like you said, like there's not a ton of judges. Like there is a need for judges and more judges and different rubrics and all those things. So for you, what was the process of learning how to be a judge?
So The first part is figuring out who and what you want to judge. That was interesting for me because I didn't even know that there was anything outside of varsity. I was like, "Oh, there's what's an AP? What does that mean?" I learned so much in my first year. So when I first started, it was through varsity's portals, which is really cool because all the different events that you see on the varsity side actually all fall within so like if you go to a spirit sport or a cheer power or whatever, that's now all varsity. When I was cheerleading, wasn't. Everybody was like an individual thing where now they're like through varsity. But the cool part is if you venture off from there and go into open championship or Waikata or even like some of these youth programs, there's all different types of things that you can judge. So I had to like figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to do it for. All those categories that I just mentioned for the judging panel, you if you ever plan to be a judge, I recommend getting certified in one for your first few years and becoming an expert in it because it's a lot. So I picked building. I was always like, I loved stunts. You go through a certification process online, no matter what way you decide to go. If it's varsity, if it's open, if it's Waikata, and there's a lot of training videos. Think of like your onboarding when you get a new job through HR. It's very similar. You watch, but they're very strict on like they don't let you skip. You have to actually watch the whole thing. You can't just skip through it. So you watch a lot of videos that explain your section of the rubric, and then there's usually videos of routines where it will ask you questions of like, what difficulty score does this team get? What was this a co-ed skill? What type of skill is this? So lots of questions you go through, and if you get X amount correct, then you're considered certified. If you get them wrong, you have to go back and try again. And then once you certify in your category, it like notifies whatever scoring body it's for, and then I actually think to backtrack a little bit, I had to go through an interview process with all the different ones. I had to like talk on the phone and make sure I wasn't just some random soccer mom who wanted to do cheer. I had to have a background,
Yeah.
send your resume, all those things. But once you become certified, they're aware of what categories you're certified in. And then again, it all depends on the event producer of how they actually do your scheduling for certain events. But as I started to judge more, I was like, I can handle more than building. So that's when I started to certify in everything. And that's how you get into those score review, head judge roles when you understand all the parts of the rubric and you've sat on a panel seat for all the different roles. Do I have things I like more than others? Yes, I can't stand tumbling. I do not like being on the panel to do it, but I get it and I understand it and I'll do it. But that's why I always say pick your specialty when you're starting and get really, really good at it. And then if you choose to branch out after that, you can do so.
I love that. Yeah, I think I personally could never be a judge. I like you said, having to have that like really close eye, especially like legalities. I'm like, I am having to like take a video and I pause my team, whatever they're doing. I go back and I watch the video and then I have to review it then and then give the feedback. I am constantly amazed when, yeah, like level one to be able to see hand connections from like behind the flyer. I'm like, I could never.
It is so hard. And you know what is crazy about legalities? I swear every week I learn something new from somebody who is an expert. And that's why I love this position because there is so much to learn. I truly believe there is not one single person on this planet that knows the rules and every part of them and can judge a routine every single time correctly. Do I think there's people who could probably do it 99% of the time? 100%. But there's so much that, like, even just explaining it. I was just at an event last weekend where I was in a room full of incredibly knowledgeable people. And one of the girls, her name was Brandy Humble. She's the most incredible human on planet Earth. If you do not know her, you should. She explained something for legality to me because I had to go explain this to a coach, and I was like, "I know how to say it, but I don't know how to turn it into a way that a coach can understand it." And she was like, "Boom, boom, boom." She listed 3 bullet points of what to say, and I was like, "That was amazing. I need to" yeah. And then I went out and explained it to the coach, and they got it, and I was like, "Okay, I understood that rule, but just the ability to tweak it in a way that makes sense to, like, your common coach who doesn't study the legality rules at home over a glass of wine on a Tuesday like I do. It was really nice to be able to like have that conversation. So I just think there's so much knowledge out there that like you can really dive deep if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, like you're talking about like specializing and then expanding from that. I think often there is that misconception that it's like one person is just watching the whole routine. And like as you're talking, there's so many fail safes in place. And like once again, like we're human and we make mistakes, and there's a process to be able to fix those mistakes.
Yes. And I think no matter what, like at the end of the day, everybody's going to have their opinion on what the rubric should look like based on what's best for their team. And that is, you can have a micro gym that's got one team of 11 athletes, and then you have a program that has 7 locations that have 400 kids at every location. What is best for those teams is very, very, very different. And I
Yeah.
do not believe there will ever be a rubric that best fits everybody. So I think at some point we just have to understand that if this is the sport we're going to choose to go into, these are the rules. This is how it works. Do the best you can. And if that's not something that you feel that you can do, this is harsh, but like try another sport because it's like
Yeah.
if you say, oh, well, I don't think I can run 50 yards to score a touchdown because my kids are small. Okay, then play volleyball. I don't know. I just think that like
Yeah.
at some point we have to understand there has to be rules, there has to be a scoring body, and it's never going to be perfect for everybody.
And like those rules and those are adjusted as the sport progresses as well. Like what we had 15 years ago was not what we have today. Like, it looks very like routines look different and how we coach is different. You know, the skills even. Like I think back to like the big one for me was like Maddie Gardner, like the 2010, 2014 era, and her like 360 ball up to stretch was like
It.
incredible then. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, that's like a middle skill now.
Yes.
And you're like, just
I
like the,
yes.
yeah, like the complexity of skills and the pace of skills and the creativity, massively different.
Yes, you are so right. And even just saying, like, as our sport progresses, I think any sport is like that. I always refer to cheerleading as other sports because I think a lot of the like cheer moms and cheer dads will be like, oh my God, that makes sense. But like, think about football for a minute. I'm a huge Bills fan, like, ride or die Bills fan. We've had, after a playoff game where there have been issues with the way that rules are written, rules have been changed. Like, for example, there was a one where if you got the ball first in overtime and you scored, it was over. The other team never had a chance to try. Well, that happened to the Bills in the playoffs. Everybody said it was crap and not fair, and the rules changed the next year. But how many times do you think that happened? That might have been the first time. It probably wasn't, but enough times where it was like, okay, there needs to be an adjustment here, or like I don't know. There's other ones with like the times for challenges or whatever. The sport progresses, so the rules progress. And it's the same thing with cheerleading. There's going to be some crazy innovative idea that this mastermind choreographer comes up with that we're like, that's not safe. We should probably rewrite the rules, but we're not going to know till we get there.
Yeah. And so you love talking about judging and scoring and helping people and talking about all these things. And so I know you recently started a new podcast. So can you talk more about that and like how did it come about and what are your plans with it?
Yes. So my friend Brooke and I have been judging together for almost 2 years now, and she is a hoot and a half. Oh my gosh. I love when we're on panel together. She gets me through the day. And I want to say we were texting about something that had happened over the weekend. And then we saw some post online of someone who was spreading misinformation. And then she actually, to backtrack, my fiance said to me like 2 months before that, you should do a podcast. And I was like, no, I feel like my content is better in small amounts because there's just so much of it. And he was like, okay, well, isn't he the right one? Because Brooke texted me, we were talking about a topic and she was like, dot, 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 I have an idea. And she goes, we should make a podcast. And I was like, no, I don't want to because I don't want my fiance to be right because I'm always right. But damn, we should do that. So we started sending voice memos back and forth to each other of like, we should do this, we should do that. Oh, we could have this person on. And then we were like, let's do it. I've never done
Yeah.
anything like this. So I used Chat GPT and I said, I want to start a podcast. What do I need? And they were like, yourself and a computer and a microphone. And I said, bet I could do that. So Brooke and I jumped on a Zoom, had no clue what we were doing, and we were like, let's come up with a couple topics that people like we just said of like things that maybe your common coach or parent or athlete doesn't understand, things that happen beyond the judges stand. And we just started rambling. And the first episode, we had an incredible guest, Gina Harris, on who runs Cheer Coach Academy. And I logged off and I was like, that was so much fun. we need to do that 100 times more. And now it's like taken over my life. Brooke and I text all day long. We have a running note of all the different topics we want to talk about. And it's just really fun because I can say a lot in a minute video, but as you've probably figured out from the last 45 minutes, I can ramble for a really long time and deep dive into a lot of things. And when you bring guests on, it's nice to hear, rather than just me in front of the camera talking, it's nice to hear someone else's perspective because it actually challenges me and Brooke a lot to be like, oh, so that's what the coach is thinking when they get this score, or they have this question. And so I don't know, it just gives us a new perspective of it's not always what we think it is, just like on the flip side, it's not always what coaches and athletes and parents think it is too.
Yeah, I love that. I know I've been keeping an eye on it and I've been watching and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to hear more. And it's one of those things that you're like, when you are comfortable talking to people and you're comfortable talking about different topics, I find that it's just so easy to be like, okay, yeah, like let's just talk about this more, right? Like I love talking about it. So like, let's create an avenue to continue that. And where is another spot where I can pursue my passion and do the things that I really like and talk about the things I really like. And when you have people like Brooke that are just as passionate, then you're able to create this really incredible project where you're just like, okay, like let me do this really cool thing.
Yes, yes. And I love it too because it first off, she's hysterical. So when we talk, I need that sometimes. I need to remember that like this is all fun. That's why I do it. And like we have an episode that'll be coming out soon that I have to edit and we deep dove into like some of the things that people were asking questions about because we I was at All Star Worlds and I was like, "Oh my god, there's so many things I need to say." And you've probably heard me say this before, but I always say there's a big black cloud between coaches, parents, and athletes and judges. And I want to get rid of that cloud and build a platform for people like you and I to have these conversations and hear it because why is that there? There doesn't it's not like we're in the FBI, Secret Service, like you can't talk to us. Like that's not a part of who we are, what we stand for. And I think that the more we can break that down, whether it's through podcasts or just collaborations or conversations, that it builds more trust in the industry and more wanting to get involved because you actually understand what's happening rather than showing up blindsided and somebody's in charge and there's not a conversation about it.
Yeah. And we end up creating better routines and we move the sport along as a result of those
Yes.
things.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, based off of that, all the things that you've talked about, what have you found has been the most impactful way of finding and going after opportunities?
Always saying yes, which will
Yeah.
kick you in the butt. But it's true. I've had times where like even the first podcast that I ever did, I had no idea what to expect, or like I have done 2 different cheer dad podcasts. I remember telling my dad that I was doing that. He was like, "You're doing what?" And I was like, I'm jumping on a podcast with a bunch of cheer dads." And he was like, "Okay, I need you to know how much fun I have had with them." And now we like talk all the time, whether it's about cheerleading or like they're a big hockey fan, so we bicker about hockey all the time. It has opened so many doors for myself, but also for them. Like they have now jumped on with Brooke. They've jumped on with some of my other friends. So like anytime someone asks me to do something, even if I'm like, I don't really know if I'm going to be good at that, I'm going to say yes because even if I'm not great at it, I'm probably going to learn something about myself that I could then do better or learn that, hey, this person's an expert on that. So now I have them. Like, I'll give you another quick example. Judge Mimi and I were talking the one time and she was like, let's jump on a call and just talk. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like I'm really nervous. I don't really know how this is gonna go. I learned so much from her, especially because I know she's heavy on the comparative rubric, which is probably not one of my strong suits. I've had tons of people reach out and they're like, "Can you help me with the Cheer Canada rubric?" I'm like, "Nope," but I know exactly who can, and now I can
Yep.
connect them. So it's been really great to just be able to meet people every time I say yes to something, and now I have some more avenues to help push my people if it's maybe not something that I'm an expert in.
I love that. We had Mimi on our first episode, and yeah, she's wonderful, incredible. Actually, I cheer and coach out of BC where she's located. So it's been
Oh,
really cool to be
nice.
like, there's another connection, another relationship that you're able to create, and you don't think about it, right? Like I always say, the more connections you can make and the more people that you get to know, the more opportunities that you'll see. And they may not even be the opportunities that you thought we're going to come out of it.
100%. Like, from here's the other thing too, like, if you asked me a year ago if I were to ever guest speak at a conference, I would've been like, "Absolutely not." Like, that now I have, like, 7 booked for this year, or, like, even just, like, the ability to have a conversation of something that I'm not knowledgeable on, that now I'm like, "Now I understand that," and now next time someone asks me a question, I can jump into it. I even joked with my fiancé the other day, we were looking at our wedding list, and I was like, "Well, these 12 people were not gonna be on the list a year ago, but now they are because I've made connections with them."
I love that. Now, that being said, if you weren't currently judging, what other role in cheerleading or sports would you want to do?
Ooh, I've never been asked that. Okay, so I did tell you that I have left teaching. So I've kind of fully jumped into the role of like my consultation business of routine reviews
Yeah.
and score sheet mock-ups and all that stuff. So I'm going to even throw that all out of the window and say that all the score
Oh,
sheets with
okay.
Gabby stuff is gone. What would I do? I would love to get into like broadcasting, even if it wasn't cheerleading. I just love sports in general. And I think broadcasters have such a cool job of being able to like dissect the things that your common person who watches sports like wants to hear about but doesn't have the time to do it. So even just like whether it's worlds or a typical like weekend event, like even just to be able to be like, this is this team and this is this skill, because I've learned so much from sports commentary, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, just by listening to them, that I think it's a really cool role that cheerleading's doing a little bit more of. But I wish that we had more like the way that football and hockey and baseball do it, because I think that would also help with the education pieces. People who watch it can listen and be like, "Oh, that's a round off handspring tuck. Oh, that's what a prep looks like," and they can kind of put word to visual.
I love that. That immediately makes me think of Maddie Gardner, to go back to it,
Yes.
and the pro cheer league.
Yes.
And I'm like, she got to put the two together and she got to broadcast and be an anchor on the pro cheer league. And I'm going to guess when she was like cheering and doing all the amazing things on senior elite, she had no idea that that's where she would end up.
Yes, that's honestly who I was thinking of, because I was a big senior elite girl growing up, like, loved her, and that's exactly who I thought of. I'm like, "How cool that she, like, took a little break from cheerleading," but there's this thing about cheer, it finds a way to suck you right back in even when you say you're done, you're not
100%.
done. But exactly what you said, like, she gets to live out her passion of cheerleading, but also still be in a position of she gets paid for her knowledge and her expertise, which she rightfully so deserves. And she's the voice to so many people that just want to learn more. And she gets to be in that role. And I think it's incredible. Good for her, honestly.
Yeah, we just could do a whole little section about we're shouting at Maddie Gardner here. Okay, my final question I ask to every single guest, which is if you were to think back to like 16-year-old Gabby, what do you wish that you would have told yourself about all the incredible things that you were going to experience?
Why do I feel waves of water coming out my eyeballs as you ask me that? I'm like, get it together.
No, you are. I think every time I ask that, they're like, wait, no, like, I don't think I would have thought it, right? So,
No, think if I went back to her, I would just say, like, hold on. Like, it is going to be worth it if you just stay true to yourself, do what you do best, and not let the noise get in the way, because what like you just said, I had no idea that I thought I was gonna be a teacher until I was 63. Like, a year ago, I thought I was gonna be a teacher until I was 63. I would have never in a million years imagined that I would be able to leave my full-time teaching job at an incredible district to do cheerleading. And so I think if I could just look at her and be like, ignore the noise, stay true to yourself, stay the kind person that you are, everything will work out, and all this crap that's around you will be worth it if you just keep moving forward.
love that so much. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I cannot wait for everyone to hear all these like just amazing little tidbits and, understand the score sheet and judges just a little bit more. So thank you so much for being a part of it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was wonderful and it was nice to learn about you. And I'm just so excited for everyone to hear about this.
Awesome. Well, make sure to tune back in for our next episode where we're answering the question, what happens after the routine ends? We'll talk to you later. Bye.